exercise, what is the sweet spot, I guess, for if you're trying for longevity, a healthy lifespan? I'm guessing it isn't the ultra endurance races.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
Human beings are wired in a certain sense to go out and slay dragons, to climb our own personal Mount Everest, to get out and just to move, right? Living in a modern, post-industrial, largely sedentary era, we no longer are scratching that itch with our jobs. Unless you're lucky enough to be a construction worker or a painter, or, like my wife out there, bringing alfalfa to the goats in the wheelbarrow and taking care of the chickens and pulling weeds out in the garden and just being out in the sunshine, lifting heavy rocks every once in a while, or maybe, you're a hunter-gatherer. If you don't fall into any of those categories, you get to the end of the workday or start the beginning of the workday, and you do have this ancestral itch to move. And hence, we now live in an era of CrossFit boxes and pop-up gyms and quick done-for-you 45-minute super brutal exercise sessions to replace what would have normally just been our day-to-day job 100 years ago. And up until very recently, gyms and exercise and beating up and buffeting the body, that was the realm of athletes and gymnasts and warriors and knights and gladiators, and it wasn't something the average person really even felt the pressure to do. You want to survive, you want to get through the day, you want to move, and this idea of intentionally starving yourself for fasting and also intentionally beating up the body with exercise, like this is a relatively new phenomenon, in an era where we're sitting all day and surrounded by food. We've had to figure out a way to kind of fight that battle, right? So we fast and we exercise. But the idea with exercise is, of course, we don't see, to return and kick this horse to death, not many of the blue zones or longevity hotspots engaging in formal exercise sessions, right? They are moving, lifting heavy things every once in a while, occasionally sprinting or playing a game of soccer or tennis, or if you look at it in terms of like an ancestral context, maybe running from a lion. But we're not doing a lot of those things now, and so we need to go to the gym. Now, what research has shown is that, to respond more directly to your question about how much, more than 60 minutes of intense exercise, let's say like a CrossFit intensity. Once you exceed about 60 minutes of that, which sounds ridiculous, but I know a lot of people who are literally pushing themselves with two-a-days or exercising hard more than 60 minutes a day, you see a law of diminishing returns and an increased risk of mortality. And in the same way with aerobic exercise, let's say moderate aerobic exercise, right, where you're pretty aware that you're exercising. It's not like you're out picking weeds in your garden. Once you exceed about 90 minutes of that, you also see an increased risk of mortality, a decreased rate of return on your exercise, and we see things like a cardiomegaly, like an enlarged left ventricle of the heart. We see increased risk for arterial stiffness. So it appears to be about 60 minutes of intense exercise and 90 minutes of aerobic exercise where you definitely see a law of diminishing returns. And so what I recommend that people do is you hack your environment so that you are somehow trying to simulate that all day long, low level physical activity type of scenario. You get a standing workstation, you get a treadmill workstation, you litter your office or your cubicle with things that allow you to do short movement spurts throughout the day, such as a kettlebell to stop and do some kettlebell swings, or jumping jacks, or I even have a hex bar in my office with some plates on it where I can lift heavy things every once in a while when I take a break. So I work hard for 25 minutes, take 5 minutes, move, change positions, walk, swing kettlebell, do a few pull-ups, lift the hex bar a few times, keep going. I wait to take all my phone calls until the afternoon when I can go outside in the sunshine and walk and take my phone calls. So you figure out a way to get your body to engage in low-level physical activity during the entire day. The way I like to think of it is that exercise should be an option when you've finished your day, not a necessity. Then when you do exercise with the minimum effective dose of exercise. Walking is one of my favorite modes of exercise, period, because I can talk on the phone while I'm doing it, I can be in the sunshine, very low barrier to entry, I can do it when I'm sleep deprived, I can go see a city when I'm in a city, it can be functional if I'm commuting. But walking speed, particularly walking at a slightly faster rate than what is comfortable for you, slightly faster than your stroll rate, and being kind of cognizant of your walking speed as you're walking, like pushing yourself to walk just a little bit faster than you want to walk. Walking speed is correlated with longevity as well. And I'll throw one other at you. This particular mode of exercise involves cold exposure, it involves hypoxia, it involves some amount of sensory deprivation, swimming.
Just swimming.
Just swimming.
Interesting that you call that sensory
swimming laps.
deprivation.
Oh, if you've, this is one of the favorite things I like to do in the mornings when I travel is I'll get into a pool at the hotel and I go under the water. I hold my breath, I go under the water, back and forth. And when I need to come up for a breath, I come up for a breath, and I train myself how to control the heart rate. And it's even better if the pool's a little bit cold, right? So you're getting some of your cold therapy. And then as soon as I've recovered my breath, I go back under, and it's peaceful, and you can't hear much other than the little swish of your hands or the swish of your feet. Your heart rate's up, you're training your breath, you're a little bit cold, and you're sensory deprived. So you almost get a very kind of meditative feeling from it. So swimming would be the one.
That's a very good one.
Yeah.